Currently, we've got 10 properties. We run some of them on our own, and some of them are investor based. So we have investors that come in and essentially like pay for the refurbishment, handle the rent and everything, and we just manage the properties. So we've been using that model to expand and add the number of properties exponentially, essentially. So yeah, currently we've got 10 on our portfolio. A few of them are already listed, and some of them are just in the preparation phase to be listed in the next coming month.
Great, great. Well, no, that's interesting. So let's walk through to say, okay, so you got 10 doors. And when did you first get started?
Our first property was signed in December 2023. And then it took us a while to launch this specific property. So we actually signed two like back to back or like 2 weeks apart. And we were just getting started. We were seeing how to set up and building our brand and doing a lot of things. So that first two properties actually took us like 3-4 months to sign. Also, there was like the holidays in the middle and everything. So it delayed us quite a bit. So it took us like 3-4 months to prepare. So from December 2023, our first listing was, I think, in March 2024. So these are the dates when we started. Now we can get a property set up from 1 month, maximum 2 months. So we were able now to cut our setup time in half, because as you know, like any time spent offline is just lost opportunity. So we don't really want to spend that much time getting the properties ready. But some things that we do, like custom furniture, custom interior designs and stuff like that. So it takes a bit of time. So we're trying to make sure that we reduce this as much as possible.
So on an average, what is your unit producing in terms of revenue? Walk us through the numbers, right?
Sure. So on average, we see revenue of about $2,000 to $2,500 a month per apartment. These are usually 3 bedrooms apartments. We can have a bit more or a bit less, depending on the month, seasonality, if there are like any special holidays, anything in that time. Obviously, like the prices are dynamically changed. So we see that we put like 2,200 as an average number. And the good thing about the properties in Egypt is that the rent is low. So a big part of the expense is rent, and that's about like $400. So having the rent this low means that we can get our rent covered in just like 2-3 nights. So which is like 10% occupancy. So yeah, that's the main attraction of this model essentially. So you get low rent versus big returns. So you get a lot of good margin for profit there.
Man, this is mind-boggling. So at 10% occupancy rate, you have already covered your expenses for the month.
Yeah, so essentially we cover the rent for like 5% more occupancy. We can cover like the rest of the expenses. So yeah, it's very good, and it's very interesting, and we're trying to keep it moving forward.
It's very lucrative. So do you see seasonality in that market?
Yeah, definitely. So we get a lot of guests from all over the world, but mainly we get a lot of guests from the Gulf region here for business or like family vacation or medical reasons, a lot of different motivations behind travel. The summer is quite high because the weather in the GCC is usually very high and very um, unappealing for people. So people come to Egypt with slightly better weather and more accessibility to beaches and stuff like that. So in the summer, we have a lot of good peaks compared to like when school season starts, like September, October, it's not that good. Obviously, like it still covers and still profitable, but you just don't see the explosiveness in the numbers, and you can't really price your nights as high as the summer months. So we do see some seasonality, but fortunately, we've been able to keep it at about 80% occupancy using dynamic pricing essentially. So we're trying to not let any nights go by unfulfilled. Yeah, so.
Great. So for our guests who don't know dynamic pricing, can you elaborate on dynamic pricing, what that is and how that works?
Sure. So basically, every property you've got different factors, right? So, and the number of bedrooms, the level of furnishing, the location, all that comes in together into like the property. So each property has its own like base price. So for example, like one property that's very luxurious, that's very usually booked, that's very attractive to people, you price it a bit higher as a base price. And then using that base price, you either increase or decrease based on market conditions. So we use some software that tracks the market and sees like how many properties next to us are booked, if there's an extra demand, holiday season, stuff like that. And it increases or decreases by a percentage. So if there's high occupancy, so we can increase our price a bit, let's say 10%. If we see like a week without any occupancy, then we reduce our prices a bit. So the prices are automatically adjusted to make sure that we get the best possible price to value ratio. So we don't price too low, so we're not making money, or price too high, so we don't get booked.
Yeah. We in US market, I'm using Price Labs and Wheelhouse for our market. Do you use the same thing, or is it something different over there for Egypt market?
Yeah, we actually use Price Labs as well. It's very well used across different markets, even like in the UAE and other places. Price Labs is very good at what it does. It's also very simple and it's relatively cheap, so it's good to use.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, and it pays for itself. Like with one
Yeah,
booking,
exactly.
cost is negligible, but the value that it produces, and especially like the feature where it shows you how your competition is doing, what kind of
Mm,
pricing they have, and if they're
yeah,
booked or not at that price point.
definitely.
Definitely. Great. So in terms of the actual management or the channel management, are you just doing Airbnb or are you spread across different channels?
No, we started with Airbnb and Booking.com because these are the most used in our region. But we're trying to market to global audiences more. So we added Agoda and Verbo as well, as channels to get booked. But by far, Airbnb has been like the most the biggest source of bookings. But we're trying to be available everywhere so we can just maximize our chances, basically.
Are you using any kind of a PMS system, channel manager?
Yeah, we're using one called Hostex. I find it's very good to use, relatively cheap, and it has a lot of features, and it's very good with integrating with Price Labs, and messaging and everything is just goes through there. That's like an everyday app.
You said Hostex. Okay. I never heard of them. In US, people are normally using Guesty, Hostaway. I'm personally using Journey, but maybe Hostex is something that's catering to the GCC market. So
Yeah, so people are. I was using Logify at first, but Logify pricing is very high, and the lower tier takes a percentage of your bookings, so it's not very economical. And as you scale, it's very bad. Hostex is relatively cheap. It's not very well known. It's like a small startup, I think. But so far they've been good, so we're sticking with them.
okay. How much are they charging?
So they have a tier which is I think $7 a property a month, and then if you add Verbo for some reason it goes to 10. So I'm not really sure why, but specifically adding Verbo gives you like extra $3 a month. So essentially it's still very cheap, but
It's still $10. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, it gives us a lot of features, and you have like your insights and team access and everything.
Now, do you do any kind of a guest verification after somebody books your apartments?
Yeah, so we definitely, according to Egyptian law, we need to have the IDs of anyone who's been booked. So we request their like a photo of their like passports or ID cards and stuff like that, to make sure that they're verified. And we have self check-in, but we do like verification of the guests that come in as well, because it's very important, especially like since we're having apartments in residential buildings, so we don't want any issues with neighbors or the owners or anything like that.
Yeah. And what mechanism do you use? Do you just ask the guest to send you like ID, or you use some kind of a software to kind of streamline that?
Yeah, so essentially now we message them on WhatsApp, so we require them to send us photos of their IDs on WhatsApp before getting like all the information and the keys and all that stuff.
Okay. And how about the property management side of the thing? So, where are your properties located? Is everything pretty much located in the city center? Give us a little background about the location of the property.
Yeah, so to do that, you need to have a bit of insight about Cairo. So Cairo is a very big city. In the center, you've got like the downtown. I've got a place called Maadi or Zamalek. These are like close to the Nile, right? And this is like the touristic, like especially of people who are coming from Western countries. This is where people want to stay. We're more focused on the an area like about like 45 minutes away from this, called New Cairo. So this is where residential communities are, essentially. And it's much quieter, much safer, much more convenient. Like the roads aren't busy. It's easier to live there. So I personally live there. It's a very nice area. And we have our Airbnbs there in like a specific like hotspot in New Cairo. And it really helps. All of our apartments are very close to each other, so it helps with property management, with like cleaning and maintenance and stuff like that. So we can easily address any issues that may come up. So yeah, we're based mostly in New Cairo. On the other side of Cairo, Western Cairo, there's Giza, if you've heard of it. So where the pyramids are, there's an area called Sheikh Zayed. That's on the other side. That's where we're trying to expand as well, because it's the same as New Cairo, but on the other side. And a lot of people like staying there, and it's a bit closer to like the city center and stuff. So we're trying to get there as well.
Great. Now, every market has its nuances to it. So, as you have lived in London and you have your business in Dubai and you are doing this Airbnb in Egypt, what
Mm.
differences do you see if you were to look at those three markets and say, okay, what's kind of standing out for Egypt and what's good and what's bad for Egypt?
Yeah. So I'm not really sure about London so far because I haven't been there in about 6 years. But yeah, I've left before like the whole Airbnb thing started to boom. But I know essentially for London is that you have very strict rules on like arbitrage, and you probably have to own the property to rent it out, and that's a lot of headache, and you need to put in a lot of capital to be able to do that. So I guess that's one thing. In terms of Dubai, because I'm really interested in that, and I've tried actually to get started. You can get a property in Dubai by arbitrage, but the issue is that sometimes they require you to pay like the whole year's rent upfront. So obviously that's a lot of capital, and you need to furnish everything and put in all the work and everything upfront. So the upfront cost is really high. The advantage is the turnaround time is really low, and you've got all the buildings, the towers, and everything. Everything has its own services. You've got everything integrated, like a pool, a gym, and everything is in one tower. And if you target like areas like Business Bay or Dubai Marina, places like these where like views are really nice, it's really good being able to sell based on this. But on the other hand, Dubai is much more seasonal because in the summer, basically no one comes. So you get much lower rates, much lower occupancy rates in the summer. On the other hand, when it comes to seasons, you can price insanely high. So like $300-$400 a night is very regular with like 1 or 2 bedrooms. So you can, Dubai essentially is high in, high out from my perspective. So it's good to, if you have a lot of capital and you want something that's easily manageable, you can do that. Also, there's a lot of services that cater towards Airbnb people because it's very popular and a lot of hosts are there. So you'll find like cleaning services are much more reliable, maintenance, stuff like that, that's more reliable. In Egypt, you just have to know everything. So you know everyone and you have to build these teams in-house more. But on the other hand, you have the very low upfront cost, you have the very low rental cost, and you don't have to pay everything upfront. So you can easily scale. So scaling in Egypt is much easier than anywhere in the world, in my opinion, or anywhere that I've experienced.